Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Sitting with Sean, episode number 13. This morning, I got a pretty interesting guest. Her name is Miss Rachel Fletcher. How you doing, Rachel?
Yes. Hi. How's it going?
Great.
Yes.
Man, it's super early in the morning. Well, it wouldn't be early in the morning for a lot of people, but for me, it is.
Yeah.
It's like 11 o'clock in the morning, man.
Oh my God, that's not early.
Well, yeah, I know, but retired life. That's early for
Yeah,
me, okay?
exactly.
Yep. So, Rachel, would you like to give a formal introduction of yourself?
Yeah. Okay, so my name's Rachel Fletcher. I am in recovery. I met Sean through TikTok, which is cool. He reached out to me. I do a lot of things. Should I talk about what I do right now?
No, we'll get on to that. We'll get into
We
that
can
here
get
in a little
on.
bit.
We can get into it. But yeah, that's it for now.
All right. So yeah, like
Yeah.
Rachel said, I met her on TikTok. I seen her page pop up, and she does rock climbing. And to me, that's a little bit out there, because like it's an extreme sport, right? And
Yes.
so I seen she had an Instagram. I was like, boom, and then it said recovery, and I was like, huh, okay. So for me in this venture in my life, if I see recovery pop up, I'm like, I got to talk to that person. I said this to Rachel before. I said, I got to talk to that person. That person has a story. So I reached out to her and she was like, yeah, let's do this. I was like, what? It's that easy?
I was so about it. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
I love just meeting people in general. It's cool.
I believe everyone has a story, and I like to hear people's stories, and where they've been, where they're going, and that's very important to me. Everyone's got a voice, so shout it from the mountaintops, as mountaintops, rock climber. Anyways,
I could tell your dad from that joke that you just.
yeah, I am, yeah,
It came out there.
I'm a terrible. I'm terrible at dad jokes. Like, no joke. That's the first dad joke that I've told in a very long time.
Wow. Thank you
Yeah,
for
yeah,
doing it with me. That was good. I'm happy to
yeah.
be here for it.
No, so whenever I go live on TikTok, people are like, "Oh, you got a dad joke," and I'm like, "No,
Do
you
they?
cut."
They put you on
Yeah.
the spot.
They
You
put
need
me
to
on
just
the spot.
impress them. You should secretly work on it and then just
I
impress them.
Yeah, I should. I go live and I cook dinner and we listen to music. I have this whole
Oh,
like
your
gym
life.
playlist. Yeah, well, yeah. So I try and bring some entertainment into people's lives, and because my time zone is different than everybody else's, so they're getting prepped
That's
for dinner,
true.
or they're getting prepped to go to bed, and I'm cooking dinner, and they're like, "Dude, why is it so bright outside?" I was like, "Cause I live in Alaska."
I
Don't be
know
judgmental.
that was one of the things I was like, I don't think I have any friends from Alaska. So now I do,
Now,
which is cool.
now you do. Now you
Now
do.
I do.
Yeah. So the dad jokes are absolutely terrible. Like for Father's Day, I went on one of my buddy's podcast, and he was like, "Oh, dad jokes." I'm like, "Dude, no, I'm terrible at dad jokes.
Not
Don't
happening.
even ask me. Not
Yeah.
happening." And yeah, so actually that podcast went a whole completely different direction, but it's not for right now. So Rachel,
Yes.
would you like to tell us a little bit about what it was like in your active addiction?
Ooh, yes, I will. But man, what it was like my active addiction. Well, I'm 5 years sober. My sobriety date is March 27th, 2017, which is like crazy. Every time I say that, because I remember when I first got sober and I met people that had 5 years, I thought they were like, I don't know. I just thought they were like untouchable gods to me. Like they were just mythical unicorn creatures that like I would never have that. I thought that when you got 5 years, then you could like levitate things off the ground or something, like
You get superpowers.
I thought you got superpowers. So like when I say that out loud, I'm like, holy cow, I'm here and I'm not levitating things off the ground. What the hell? I've been misled. But man, so now when I talk about what happened, it's like I'm going back a little bit. So I started getting high when I was 18, which is like kind of weird. I grew up in a very broken home. My dad was one of us. He was an alcoholic addict. He did AA. he had like, the story is that he had like 7 years, which is like incredible, and then relapsed, went way off the deep end, struggled with like mental health and delusions, and he ended up taking his own life when I was like 5 years old. So that was like I think that from like, I've done a lot of trauma work since then. So from like your childhood is so influential on like how you view yourself in the world, right? So like the one person that's supposed to like put on this earth to love me, my parent, decided to just not exist anymore. A self choice, right? So like, what does that instill in me? That instills that I'm not worth sticking around for. I'm not worth being loved. The abandonment issues are there, right? And my mom did the best that she could, but it was just hard. We were really, really religious. And that worked for me for a while. But I remember when I was 18, and my mom was really sheltering of me. So she my mom's not an alcoholic, but I've never seen her drink. Like, so she's very like, she hates alcohol. She thinks it's like, it ruined our family. So when I turned 18 and I had freedom, I remember I was invited to my first party, like as an adult, and I could do that. And I went to a party, and I am that true blue alcoholic. Like, I literally drank for the first time and I blacked out.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Like, the first time. And like, it was so weird because like I woke up the next day, and like, even I can remember some of the feelings while I'm like drinking for the first time. It was like, holy crap. Everything that I've been searching for, this like lack of love that I'm missing from my dad, this like broken home, all these things, I feel like a hole in my heart, felt full from that drink.
Yep.
Like, I just felt great, and I was like, this is it. This is like what I need to like fix me. And so I used from 18 to 24, but Chewy, my dog's crying a little bit. He's got emotional attachment issues. Come here, buddy. So as like they say, the disease is progressive. My disease progressed. I went from alcohol to, using Adderall to like moving on to stronger substances. And then when I was about 22, I was like a full-blown heroin addict, which is like really strange, because if you looked at my like family, other than like the family history with my dad, my mom is this like wonderful Christian lady. So like, so it's just like a really strange thing that like, oh, that's Rachel that I grew up with in church, and now she's like on heroin, she's homeless. And my life for about a year was waking up, being really dope sick, doing pretty much everything that I said I would never do to get the drugs that I need, and then going to sleep, and then waking up and doing it all over again. And I was just a slave and in this vicious cycle of misery, and it wasn't fun anymore. I did go to treatment for the first time when I was 23. I had saw someone that was close to me I used to get high with overdose, and I actually like, it's like it's a miracle, but I gave him mouth to mouth, and I put him in the bathtub and turned the water on because I saw that in a movie. Like, I didn't have education on like what to do. Like, I didn't know about Narcan or anything like that, but he lived, which is incredible. So It terrified me. I was like, I'm gonna die if I don't get together. So I went to treatment, and when I was in treatment, it was just like a really safe place, and it felt really good, and I really thought I was like cured, and then I got out, and I didn't take any of the suggestions for like aftercare whatsoever, and I relapsed, and then my relapse just got so dark. There was no like period of like having fun and then it going bad. It was just immediately from like being sober to being the worst. And I used for, I think, like another 8 months until I went to detox again in March. That's what happened. That's where what happened. That's how I ended up to where I am now.
I can relate to that feeling. Oh yeah, yeah.
Can't we
You're
all, like, our
you're
stories are
yeah.
different, but the feelings are the same?
Yeah, yeah, like your story kind of like mirrors mine in a little bit, or for a little bit, when I got 18, I was free into the world. I used to live under an iron thumb of my dad. I talked a little bit about that prior to recording. I used to live under the iron thumb of my dad, and then when I joined the army and I got free, I was like, huh,
Yeah.
let's do it. Let's do it. I lived in Italy. There's no drinking age, so I was just like, let's go. And my first sip of alcohol, I feel like I was addicted right off the bat. Boom,
Immediately. And the
immediately.
military loves alcohol.
Oh
I've worked
yeah,
with a
oh
lot of
yeah,
veterans now. I've done veteran programs and stuff
yeah. I said this in another recording that I
in
was
the
doing.
culture.
Yeah, yeah. It's embedded in the culture.
Hmm.
They get you addicted, and then they have a lackluster program to help get you sober, and then nothing. And so
Yeah,
if you
it's
do
a
something
problem.
while you're yeah, if you do something while you're under the influence, you get in trouble. But it's like it's like a terrible parent. Like I'll say that it's like a terrible parent. Like do as I say, not as I do.
Hmm.
You know. So so yeah, that's really where everything kicked off for me. And I was just like, man, I love getting hammered drunk. I hate waking up with the hangover, but I love it. And then I
Yeah,
started.
none of my consequences mattered, like, at
No, no,
all.
no. It was like, oh, you're gonna ban me from going off base. There's a shop at right down the road that sells alcohol, and I can go get a bottle.
Yeah.
I have friends that'll supply it for me. And I tested with some harder stuff, and I like the harder stuff, which is why I didn't do it. And that was while I was in the army too. Like tested with cocaine, tested with hallucinogens, and I loved it. And I was like, if I like it, I'm gonna get addicted. But I was already there. I
Yeah.
was already I was already there with alcohol, and I didn't even see it. It snuck in so fast, and it got to a point where like I was waking up and I was right off the bat just to level out that hangover.
Yeah, it
Um,
progresses.
yeah, dude, I've
100%.
been I've been to what the army would call rehab many times for things that I did, and none of it mattered. I didn't take it seriously up until probably the last time that I was in there. But even then, like I went out and relapsed again. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so I can relate to that feeling, that feeling of loving it and like feeling accepted because I chased acceptance my whole life because I didn't feel accepted. And
Yeah.
especially as a young kid, like you want the love and acceptance from certain parents. I know for me it was my dad, and I chased that forever, and I never would get it. I mean, but now I have it. I stopped looking for it. But um, I searched my whole life, and even when I would come home on leave and I'd see my dad, we would drink together when he was in recovery because my dad was sober for 7 years, and then
Mm. Oh, that's
decided,
weird.
yeah, decided that
That's
was
weird.
it. Yeah, I swear, there's like a in life, for certain things, there's a time frame where we get to that point where like, okay, that's enough. Like you like in marriage, you get the 3-year itch. Recovery,
Right.
you get the 7-year. Okay,
There's a
well
lot
at
of people
least
that go out between 5 and 10.
yeah,
A lot
yeah,
of
because it
people.
yeah
You
because they
get
think that they're
complacent.
yeah they think that they're okay and that they got it now because they got a little time under their belt. But recovery is a lifelong thing. It's not just a moment in time. It's a lifelong thing.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you mentioned that you went back out after getting out of rehab and you relapsed. What led you back into recovery?
Okay, so I was just at a point where obviously the drugs weren't working. I was miserable and I felt like I pretty much just wanted to kill myself at that point. I just didn't want to keep going. But there was this little part of me that knew. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's just like the universe or something, but there was a little part of me that had just a little bit of faith that, like, maybe I could change or maybe something could be different, you know? And like, it's weird. Like, have you ever heard of the phrase like happy as a pig and shit? That like a
Yeah,
pig isn't happy, that's in shit.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
all it knows. That was like so me. Like, like my whole life was so toxic for so long that like I just didn't even know what like joy or like life could really be. That's why I always try to instill in people who are like, I see people, I work in treatment now, but I see people all the time where they don't even have a concept. And I wish I could box it up and give it to them and show them like, look, your life could get so sick, but you just like can't even like, you can't even fathom that, but I went into treatment, and I also just like, they say like the gift of desperation. I just was at the end of myself, I was willing to try everything and anything and take any suggestion. I pretty much treated every person that I met in treatment as like a shaman who had their own bit of wisdom that they could give me. Whether you were, a therapist to like just like one of the techs, you know what I mean? Like you don't have an education, but you have some experience, and there's something that you have learned on your journey, So I listened to everybody. I hit the ground running. I discharged. I went to sober living. I stayed in sober living for a year, and I had to I was getting sober at 24, and I had been getting high since I was 18. I didn't know how to live, man. Like I didn't even know how to I didn't know how to pay taxes. Like I never held down a real job. Like I didn't know how to be an adult. I didn't know how to be a contributing member of society. So like, not only did I have to like learn to get sober, but I had to like learn how to be human, which was really cool. And that's why I needed such structure in my life. I worked 12-step programs, was really, really good for me. I would say that like is what got me sober. My recovery looks a little bit different today. I can speak on that too, but a really like, it's, I guess what makes my story, I think, like kind of different. And I think that I wish that like more people like spread this, is that when I got sober, I felt like I had no, like, not that I had no personality, I had no passions, I had no hobbies, right? Like, because before you were saying that you like drank, and from the morning you woke up till night, right? You probably weren't doing anything else cool.
Nope.
Right? So like when I got sober, same thing. I had no idea what I was into. And I always tell, like, especially when I'm trying to like mentor people in my life, you can either be really negative about this moment and be like, this sucks, like my best choices got me to this point where I have like nothing, or you can pretend that you're Julia Roberts in the movie Eat, Pray, Love, and be like, I'm on my spirit journey. You know what I mean? And that's like, I know it's so funny, but it's so true. Like, I literally convinced myself that like, this didn't just happen to me. This is like a choice. Like I'm making a choice to like find myself. So I started like trying tons of different things, and I bought this ukulele. And I'd never played an instrument before. And I literally would spend a lot of my time just teaching myself the ukulele off of like YouTube. And I started writing songs, which was like incredibly therapeutic. They were all about me getting sober and all the emotions, Yeah. And I really sucked at it, honestly, like at first, because you learn anything new, you're going to be bad at it, right? And like, humans, because of the ego, we don't want to be bad at anything. Like most people won't push past the part where you have to practice to get good at something. I just kept doing that every single day, and within like 6 months I could like rip and play songs, and I was like playing open mics, and I started a band, and it was really cool. It opened all these doors for me to meet cool people. And also at the same time, I was like going to meetings and like working my steps and like calling support and like seeing a therapist and like doing all these things to work on being sober, because I sucked also at being sober. I'd never been sober. So now I'm like doing these two things at once. And within like 6 months of doing the same thing every day, it's like, oh, I'm not that bad at this anymore. Like I don't really know what I'm doing. I still don't know what I'm doing, but like, I think within 6 months, I wasn't like, just like white knuckling it. Like I need to get high, And then from there, it just kind of took off, which is really cool. So that's
Yeah.
like one of the big components of like what helped me
Yeah.
get sober.
Yeah. I can relate to the gift of desperation too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked at people that were in the program that I was in, and generally it's anywhere from a 9 to 18 month program. And I looked at them and I said, I don't care if you got in yesterday or if you got in uh, 18 months ago. I want what you got. And I
Yeah.
was like, I was ready to absorb
Believe that they
everything.
had it though. There was a little part of me was like, is this real? You know?
Yeah, yeah, and in the program I was in, it was all court related. So you had, benchmarks that you had to make. You had, court dates that you had to make.
That's like a hardcore program,
It
probably.
is. It is. It's really structured, and if you don't meet those benchmarks, well, if you miss an appointment, if
Hmm.
you're not accountable, if you don't turn in your logs, you get in trouble. There's some real consequences behind it. I've seen people go to jail. I've seen people get kicked out of our program because they weren't meeting the requirements, and I was like, I don't know. I need to be here. There's a reason I'm here,
That's
and
awesome that you completed.
yeah, yeah, and in that time, actually, you were talking about playing the ukulele, and dude, it's crazy, like how much ours relate. I was in music therapy prior to being in the program, and I kind of quit everything that I was doing when I
Of course.
relapsed. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it was working,
Nobody's
right? It
Yeah,
was working,
nobody's
right?
like, I mean, you might have the occasional like music and alcohol is like big together, but you're
Hmm.
definitely not the most motivated person, you
No,
know?
no, yeah. And I put everything else, when I was in my relapse, I put everything else behind my use, and I was like, if I'm getting drunk, that's okay. I'll go to work in the morning if I can drive. uh I'm definitely not going to this appointment because and I found an excuse why not to do things.
Of
And
course.
so when I got into my program, it was one of accountability and honesty, and I had to be honest with myself. And I was like, what worked for me in the past? Okay, well, music therapy worked for me in the past. Just so happens we started with ukulele, and then
Because it's
and
an entry level instrument.
it is an entry level
The
instrument.
gate, it's the gateway. It's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah, and then and
You
then
play
once I
other
grad.
instruments now?
Yes, yes, I actually do.
Me too.
What you don't see behind the cameras, I got a drum set right there, and I
Nice.
have I have a guitar right here. I've got an electric
Yeah.
and an acoustic upstairs, and I sing a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah. I actually I up here I live on a military installation, and we have the Ninth Army Band up here, and I played one day with them, and as part of like a conjuncture thing with my music therapy program and theirs, and their band was like, "Dude, you're good enough to play with us." I was like, "Don't feed my ego, please, don't feed my ego." They're like, "No, you should play with us," and I'm like, "No," and it was just because like one day I had the right energy drink at the right time, and they were playing my damn song, which is "Sweet Child of
Yeah.
Mine," which is
Oh
"Sweet
my
Child of
God.
Mine." And I got into practice, and they're like, let's play, and I was just going at it. Right, they got this big room, and we were just going at it, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry if I went a little bit too hard. I'll try and tone it down. They're like, no, keep it going, we need to catch up to you. And I was like, okay, all right, let's do this. Yeah, so I
You're hype.
find. Yeah, I was going. And it just so happened the very next day. Well, no, 2 days later, we had a performance at the VA up here, and it was just so much fun. I had a great time. Um, yeah, so I enjoy playing music, and you start to find yourself like who you are in recovery. Like you mentioned, you had no idea of your hobbies. I didn't. I had no idea of my hobbies. I knew things I liked. Like I like professional wrestling. Um, I like I'm a nerd, so I like MCU and DCU. I like music. I like collecting things, but I didn't know who I was like as a person when I started
Yeah.
my journey. And what were some of the programs that you were going through that were like beneficial for you?
Programs. So I don't like to talk like specifically like what 12 step that I
No,
talk
no,
about
I'm.
just to keep
Yeah, no.
anonymity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that helped me a lot. I did that. I I work for a program now. Should I talk about that?
We'll get into that in a second.
I'll get into it in the end. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Um, for me, it was working a 12-step program, and then of course I found rock climbing. So that's not like a program per se, but that I call that my medicine. So like I loved
Mm.
music. Music is cool. I still play music. I don't really play shows anymore. I play for like my dogs for fun at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say that. I play for my dogs now. I'm not really into like I always would get like crazy nauseous like nerves and I never like got past that. You know when they say like, "Oh, you'll eventually." I never did and I was like, "You know what? It's not for me." Um I found rock climbing though and that was like a come to Jesus moment for me.
Yeah.
It was almost like alcohol. Like I literally like tried climbing and I was like, "Oh my god, this is like it for me." Cuz when I'm climbing, I literally can't it's you were talking earlier about how you like when you like have like a shit day and you watch like TikTok, sometimes it's exactly what
Yeah.
you need.
Hmm.
I can have a horrible day and I go climbing and all of my problems go away. I like can't think about anything else. It's like
Yeah.
totally in the moment, immersive.
Hmm.
Because you're also just like climbing, right? So like it would be like really unsafe for you to be like thinking about like what that guy said to you at work today. Like you're just thinking like, wow, I gotta grab this next fold and then this next fold, you know? And I get in like a flow state and then there's just like so many aspects to like why I think climbing is so therapeutic because like one I like climbing outside
Hmm.
on big mountains like I like doing multi pitches. I've climbed in Yosemite. I climbed a 2,000-foot climb, which is like a lot. It's like
Yeah.
really that's a lot of it's a lot of climbing.
It's a
um
lot of feet.
it's a lot of feet. That's extreme.
Yeah.
It took like 10 hours.
Holy
um
crap.
Yeah, crazy. And Yosemite is nuts, but I can't tell you how small you feel like when you're on a mountain like that. And
Mhm.
it just like really puts in perspective how like big the world is and how little you are and how little your problems are, you
Oh
know? And
yeah.
then also it's so easy to get caught up in like, okay, so sobriety, right? So like
Hmm.
first you got to get over what I described, like going to treatment, getting away from the people, places, and things that trigger me, you know,
Yeah.
figuring out how to live, figuring out a routine, but then like you're left with yourself, right? Like my issue wasn't my addiction to alcohol anymore. Now it's the fact that I'm a human being with feelings and emotions and like happiness is like for me happiness isn't even the goal because I feel like happiness is fleeting. It comes and
Hmm.
goes, right?
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
goal is fulfillment. You know,
Yeah.
that is my true goal in this life. And so how am I going to be a person who's fully present? Like I always like think in my head, have you ever seen those memes that like it's like, yeah, sex is cool, but like have you ever tried like mowing your lawn and then like
Yeah.
standing at
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
think like, yeah, sex is cool, but have you ever just been present in every waking moment of your life? Because that's me. Like I don't get to like take a break. Neither do
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
majority of society is like getting home from work and drinking a beer to wind
Hmm.
down. I'm I'm here for all of it. So like
Yeah.
how can I cope with all of life's problems that it throws at me? Because when you get sober, shit still happens, man. You
Yeah.
know?
Oh
So
yeah.
for me, it was like gaining coping tools. And like a big one for me is climbing. I'm really busy right now with work and I I actually hadn't climbed in like 10 days, which is like way too long for me. And I literally said to my boss, I was like, "Hey, I need to like take the night off from my phone and like I need to go climbing. Like it's my medicine. Like
Yeah.
I really need this. Like
Yeah.
I know I'm not taking care of myself
Yeah.
in the ways that I'm supposed to." And then of course other I don't know, it's like not a program, but I did a lot of therapy because like clearly we talked about our dads.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a whole bunch of trauma to unpack that doesn't get cured in like 30 days of treatment, you know?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Oh,
And it came up, you know, it came up in sobriety for me
yeah. Yeah.
a
Well,
lot, and I had to address it.
yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't link together. And I kind of did this like model that I have in my head is like there's a mental health issue and then that addiction kicks around. And then because of the addiction, there's a mental health issue. And then
Yeah,
because of
it's a
that one,
circle.
it's a vicious cycle. And it
It's a
takes something.
cycle.
It takes something to break that chain. And for
Yeah.
me, it was mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. And it was just encompassed biopsychosocial. Yeah, exactly. It encompassed my biopsychosocial. And you know, uh, I needed therapy. I still go to therapy. I still do my counseling. I still, I still do my program that worked for me because if you stop doing something that works for you, you're going to stop doing the next thing that worked for you. Then you're going to stop doing the next thing that worked for you. And then eventually everything that worked for you is going to be gone. I've seen that. I've seen that shit happen
It
so
also
many times.
changes. It also
Yeah.
changes.
Oh yeah,
It's kind of
absolutely.
like when we touch on like what I do now,
Yeah.
like 5 years later, like
Yeah.
it's looks totally different than what I did in my first year.
Yeah.
I'm
I did.
supporter of like being fully immersed in recovery that first
Yeah.
year because you're
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
fragile.
Yeah. I did relapse prevention and I don't need relapse prevention anymore because I learned the tools and the skills that I needed to do that. I did
Yeah.
moral reconation therapy and I learned that and I'm actually a I got
I don't know what
licensed to
that
be a
is.
facilitator. Oh, it's
What
another
is
12-step
that?
program. It's another
Is
12-step
it?
program.
I'm gonna
Yes,
write
but
it
it's great.
down.
It's
What
called
is it called?
moral reconation therapy. And it sounds like recognition, but it's reconation. So you're
More
reconnecting to yourself.
Okay.
And so
I'm gonna
what it
Google that later.
it's a 12-step program. It was created by a Dr. Robinson in Memphis, Tennessee. And
Yeah.
essentially what it does is a 12-step program worked out of a workbook. The first step is always the hardest, is admitting you have a bag of secrets. And then after that, it builds you back up. And that step one was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Hardest thing I've ever
Wow.
done in my life, because you have to admit to things and be honest with yourself and be honest with others about things that you did that you're not proud of, that nobody
Painful.
else knows. Oh my God. Oh my God. It was painful. It goes present day back to 1 year, 5, 10, and 20 years. Well, obviously, sitting at 20 years as a kid, but still you work through that, and then you give a testimony at the end of that session, and it's just one of the hardest things. And I got out of that first step, and I was like, I called one of my mentors. I was like, dude, I don't feel any better. I was like, I feel like shit, and he was like, you should. He was like, you should. And I'm like, oh well,
Therapy is
we're
like that. It's like
yeah.
that.
Certain therapies are very, very rough. Like, I did trauma induced therapy, and whew, that's
Yeah.
another beast in its own. Um, but it's crazy all the different programs that you find out once you get into recovery, once you talk to other people. Um, and a lot of people, we have a lot of the same things that we do in recovery, but we also have a lot of different things, and you talked about finding fulfillment. My mission in life is peace, because my whole life has been chaotic, just pure
Mm-hmm.
chaos, just madness, running amok. I like that because one of my old clients was like, oh, I used to run amok, and I was like, Hocus Pocus, like the movie Hocus Pocus. I thought of that
Yeah.
right off the bat. And so I
Yeah.
use that now. I used to run amok, and like my life was so chaotic. And now I'm on this quest for peace. What does peace mean to me? What does it look like to me? And so I introduce these things that I find peaceful in my life. I did meditation and yoga. I do meditation and yoga.
That's awesome.
I I never knew I could sit still for an hour outside of sleeping
It's a
and
long
just like
time.
be with myself. Yeah. See, for me, it's all or nothing. Like I have
Yeah.
to immerse myself or not do it at all. And so
Clearly
like,
me too.
yeah,
With the 2,000 feet of climbing.
Yeah, the 2000. That's a lot of feet, man. Uh,
I don't just climb a little bit, I
yeah,
climb a lot.
you climb a lot. Yeah, and it's all about moderation. And like, so really being with myself and really identifying what's going on in me, and I use those in the moments that I'm in pure panic mode, where I'm just like, oh, like I'm just about to hit
Does
that
it
rage
work for
monster.
you in that
Oh
moment?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I have to step away. I have to step away and literally get away from everything. Like I have to get away from the
Wow.
kids. I got to get away from the dogs and the
So you
cats.
have a strong practice then.
Hmm.
That's
Yep.
really good.
And even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 5 minutes where I'm just there and I'm like, or if it's an hour, and like an hour is generally where I'm like I need a lot of work, but like 5 minutes is like, okay, I'm starting to feel that.
Can I ask what do you think about when you're doing that step away? Like you're really mad or something and you step
What goes through
away?
my head?
Yeah, what do you
Oh man.
channel?
So
Do you like do a
I
mantra?
No. So I used to do the Serenity Prayer. It used to be the Serenity Prayer. I used to hold my 24-hour chip in my hand, just run my hands through it, say the
Yeah.
Serenity Prayer in my head, just repeat it until it went away, and that worked for
Yeah.
me. And then it evolved into I was starting into therapy, and I was starting my counseling, and just all the old wounds that I had were opening back up. And so it became this point where I was like, I just need to be with myself and figure out what's wrong. And if it surfaces in that session that I have, then I need to identify it in counseling.
Oh, like your triggers.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, am I
Like my
really mad at the dog or am I mad at
yeah. Well, I had a
I
hard yeah.
understand.
Like I had a hard time identifying the difference between my emotions and my feelings. I thought that I could control my emotions and my feelings for the longest time. I was like,
You
if I want to be
can't.
happy, no, no. And I was
That's what
like,
I said. Happiness comes and goes. You really
yeah,
can't
yeah.
control.
If I wanted, if I always thought if I wanted to be happy, I could just choose to be happy. That's not how that works.
God, can you imagine if it was like that though? That we stick.
Right, right. And
Everyone would be fine.
yeah. And so for all my negative emotions, I always reverted to anger. It was like if
Yeah.
I'm sad, I'm angry. If I'm upset, I'm angry. If I'm this, I'm angry. Sometimes even when I was happy, I was angry. And I figured out like the root of that and like why I went to that.
What is
But
the root?
the army, they teach you to get angry about anything.
Yeah, and you know what they say about anger, right?
Hmm.
It's fear.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And
Yeah.
like
Yoda
so
says that.
yeah,
Do
when
you
I,
like Star
yeah,
Wars?
yeah,
Yoda says that fear
yep.
turns to anger, anger turns to hate, hate turns to suffering.
Yeah. I learned so like and I ended up making a parallel back to when I was in the army because I actually just figured this out after I got out. If you were running, they'd say get angry. Like you're running and
Mm,
like
because
shit
it
was
was a
starting to suck.
motivation.
Yeah, yeah. They're like get angry. Or
Wow.
if you're on a deployment, you're about to go out on patrol and you know that some bad shit's about to happen. Get angry.
Wow. No wonder.
So
And
you
then they just release you guys back with like no aftercare at all. And then everyone's fucked up. That's so
so
horrible.
you become like I became this rage monster, and I didn't
Yeah.
know how people were afraid of me because I had a beard, and they look at me like you look perpetually
Mm-hmm.
angry, and I'm like
They could
because I
feel the
fucking am.
energy.
Yeah, yeah, and like I can relate to like when the Hulk and I make this weird parallel with the
Mm-hmm.
MCU, but the Hulk at the end of Avengers where they said Bruce, but you need to get angry, and he's like, the funny thing is I'm always angry.
Mm,
And that was my thing.
yeah.
I was always angry. There was nothing that could cure that until I got into recovery. And now I'm not angry anymore. I'm not I have my moments where I get worked up, but I'm able to stop myself
Yeah.
before I get to
You're
that point.
human.
Yeah, yeah, I'm human. I'm human. Yeah, I'm allowed to feel my feelings, my emotions. my rage, but don't let it get past that. If I let it get past that, like the only thing I can control is what I do with it. And I learned that.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. So taking it and turning it into positive. But meditation's worked out great for me. And now I live my life in my program. And I have my days where nothing works for me. And then I have my, days where everything works for me, where I can just look at the
Right.
sun and I'm like, oh, you are so beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have those days too.
Yeah. I think we all do. So now in your program in recovery, what do you do now to stay sober and stay in your program?
So now, okay, now my life, it's crazy. It's just gotten so good, like so good, like things that had happened that I just never thought would ever happen for me. Like I'm married too. I got married like 2 years ago. That's wild. Like I never
Congrats.
thought that. Like, thank you. Never thought. I mean, I never thought I could really maintain a healthy relationship. Especially marriage. You probably know marriage is hard as fuck, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No joke. It's work.
Yeah, it's work. People should be more open and honest about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not sunshine and rainbows, guys.
Right?
It's
Exactly.
sometimes it's work.
I think that because I was raised in like a Christian household, like it's very like normal to be like, this is as your woman, this is your purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
stop telling girls that, dude. Like they should only
Yeah.
do that if they're like committed to the person and the work that you have to do, because it's like hard, but also
Yeah.
super enriching. I'm married. I own a tattoo shop. I co-own a tattoo shop in South Florida. So I live in two places, which is really weird. I have a house in North Jersey, and I stay here like 3 weeks a month. And then the last week of every month, I fly down to my tattoo shop and I handle like all the accounting for that. And that just like that venture came together. I would just say like God shit, man. Just like moving pieces. I love it. I have like 14 artists. They're wonderful. That's why I'm so tattooed. I haven't paid for a lot of my tattoos, which is very cool.
You got a ton of tattoos, dude.
I'm very tattooed. Yeah, exactly. And I'm still working on it. But yeah, that's part of the reason why. And that's really cool. That like brings blessings in my life. But a huge, huge part of my life right now is that my husband and I opened a treatment center in North Jersey.
Nice.
We started on it, working on it like 2 years ago, and we are officially open and running. And our whole goal was that, well, for him specifically, he's like 10 years sober, but we wanted to like create a program where like you went to like a drug court, which is like hardcore, right? And maybe that's like what you needed, but there are so many programs and they just like all offer the same thing. You know what I mean? And we wanted to do something that was like a little different, that like there's programs that are like wilderness programs out west where like have you heard of them? They give you a week's worth of food and they're like, go like survive, Yeah. And you either really take to that or you don't, right? You're either the person that will work for or you don't. But there really aren't a lot of programs where they involve adventure therapy and a strong clinical component. So that's what we are. We're called Moving Mountains Recovery. We do like a strong clinical base with groups and therapy and like family sessions and all like the different, we have emotionally focused therapy. So like based on like attachment styles, if you're familiar, like your relationships, basically, how do you relate to people in the world? And then post-traumatic growth. So like what you were saying with taking a negative thing and making a positive, that's what post-traumatic growth is. It's just you are traumatized and this horrible thing happened to you, but how can we use this as a strength in your life, which I think is really cool. And then we take them every Sunday and we do like really cool adventure stuff. So like I'm obviously obsessed with rock climbing, so I love taking clients rock climbing. I think rock climbing can like heal. I really believe that. You know, and it doesn't like some people are fucking terrified. Like I've experienced that. Like some people are really terrified, but there's also something to say about trying something you're really scared to do and like moving through that fear. Like that is a lesson in itself. And then some people love it. Some people like, you know, when you were like first sober and you were in treatment,
Yeah.
like you definitely were like thinking about getting high all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when you go on an adventure like that, they don't think about it for a little bit, which is really cool to see. Like I ask them that sometimes, like, so like how like much did you like think about drinking like over the course of the last like 5 hours? They're like, oh, I really honestly forgot, you know, which is like weird. You're like a week sober. Snowboarding, hiking, river rafting. People don't know this, but North Jersey is actually like Jersey has a horrible reputation because of like a few of the bad cities, but there are like there's a whole mountainous like beautiful side of Jersey where I live. So we have like the Delaware River runs through, so I kayak down that, and it has rapids and stuff too. So we have a bunch of stuff that we do, and they can even go skydiving upon graduation because one of our owners is a tandem skydive instructor, and that's his medicine. He's like a wild character. But
That's
he's
awesome.
like yeah, so cool, right? Like he literally his day job, he like tandem jumps out of planes like 20 times a day with like people strapped to his chest.
Damn.
And he's like 13 years sober. He also base jumps. Are you familiar with that?
Yep.
Base jumping?
Yep.
That's a solo thing. We can't do that with the clients because it's way too high risk.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but so like I definitely for the last like 2 years have like thrown my whole life into like building this program that I really believe in. That provides me like a lot of fulfillment. I love giving back. I'm really passionate specifically about like helping women. I don't really work 12 steps anymore, which is like kind of weird to say. At one point I never thought that I would do that, but my recovery's just kind of changed over like the last year, but I guess it does. I think I just was sitting there one day and I almost felt like I don't know, this might not be relatable, but I almost felt like, and I would never want to steer someone away. I think that like it was what I needed for a really long time, but there was just this point where I was sitting there and I just kept hearing the same things, and I was like, I think I need to expand my service outside. Do you know what I mean? So I've gotten really involved in like volunteer work. I'm really into like trail work and like ways to help the environment. And that's like where I've been kind of doing my service. Like I've never done community service outside of recovery. So that's been like really important to me. But like pretty much like what keeps me sober is that I just have like a really fulfilled life. Like I work hard, I play hard. Like I go climbing after work. I am going to a hardcore festival in Philly this weekend for like 3 days called This Is Hardcore.
Nice.
Yeah, I love to throw down, dude. Like I love music. So like talk about anger. It's not even angry, but you know, like moshing and stuff like that's fucking fun. And like basically what keeps me sober is the fact, well, one, I'm at a point where like I think that I've rewired the neural pathways in my brain to like to the point where like I don't think about I haven't thought about picking up in a real years. But my life is so cool and so there's so much in it that like I know that if I were to drink, it would just all fall apart. I would, number one, completely let down my tattoo shop. I wouldn't be able to afford plane tickets to go down there. I wouldn't be able to count the money. I would definitely mess up everyone's payroll. People would be mad, you know? Definitely wouldn't be able to run a treatment center. Like, are you kidding me? Like, there's so many moving parts. And like one of my favorite parts is hanging out with clients. Like you do groups. Like I am a part of all of the programmatics of that. I wouldn't be climbing because climbing, it takes a lot of like awareness, and that would be terrifying.
One wrong step and you're done.
One wrong step. Like, I mean, I personally, so for the clients, like we set up like safe top ropes, and it's like it's super safe, and we have guides and everything like that. For myself though, I like to push it, man. Like I like to
You
do
free
like,
climb.
yeah, I do. I mean, I always have ropes, but it's like lead climbing. There's a potential where
Yeah.
I could like fall like 10 feet at a time. Like something will catch me, but I like do crazy shit. But and then also my relationships. I would ruin all of my relationships, and I have like friendships that are amazing. I have my husband. I have my family that like trusts me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like that's crazy. And like you
Yeah.
were saying with like your dad, you have like a pretty good relationship with him now, even though it wasn't like always that way. Like I'm that way with my sisters who like at one point, like I kept them like having a hard time just like sleeping for like 7 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
I'm like, it's weird. I'm the person that they call for help
Right.
because I have my shit together, dude,
Mm-hmm.
which is weird, you know?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah,
all
it
that would
is.
go away. So like, is drinking appealing to me today? No way. Like,
No.
like I can't. You can't even compare it, and it just gets better. Like, there's only going to be like cooler stuff around the corner, and then like
Mm-hmm.
the bad things that do happen, like you know, God, like a really big lesson for me for a long time when I got sober was it was actually around 3 years
Mm-hmm.
sober was my life started to get good. My first year felt like a struggle. Like it felt like a struggle.
Yeah.
And I didn't really gain any sort of financial security at all until about 3 years. It took a really long time because I started from nothing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and like I started to build these really meaningful relationships. I was like exceeding at work and working in treatment. I worked from the bottom up as
Yeah.
like an entry level tech, and then did
Mm-hmm.
groups and alumni, and then case management. Now I'm doing what I'm doing now, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I became obsessed with the fear of losing what I had. And
Mm-hmm.
then I kind of realized that the only answer is that the truth is I have no control over what happens or the future.
Oh
Like
yeah.
my husband could die in a car crash tomorrow, knock on wood, but like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I have no control over that. But like
Yeah.
the truth is that I have like this extreme confidence in the fact that I know that the universe has given me all the tools I need to handle everything that life throws at me, and that I can I can stay sober through them all, which is
Yeah.
really cool. And that's like really like all I need. And then if I can like instill that in the people that I meet that are struggling of like how good it can get, you know what I mean? And that
Mm-hmm.
like you're gonna be okay, because that's like what we want, you know?
Yeah.
That's everything to me. That just
Oh,
like makes me
absolutely.
feel so good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about, moving out of the 12-step programs, and I can relate to that. And it's not that the 12-step programs aren't great. Like they are.
They're great. They're
They're
amazing.
great. Some people need them for their whole life, and more power to them. Some people need them for a time period. For me, I still go back every once in a while because there's something that I feel I need to hear, and generally,
Yes.
I'm going for a reason. And
I think that it's really good to not be like resentful or be
oh yeah.
like never again. I'm like really open to like if like let's say I keep saying the car crash analogy. If something really terrible happened to me, I would go right back to those rooms because
Yeah.
that is a safe zone. And I know that. You know, I'm
Hmm.
open to that.
Hmm.
And I also think it's really cool to pick up your medallions
Yeah.
yearly to show that it works. I love that.
Well, I got them right here.
Hell yeah.
They sit right behind me with my peer support certification.
Yeah.
But yeah, you said that that there's not a need for you to go back, and if there was, then hey, it's there for you. And I believe in not holding resentments whatsoever. For me, there was nothing that happened with my home group that I'm like, yeah, don't need to go back. um I love my home group. I got sober during the pandemic, so that was a little bit extra hard.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, life changed. So like I started going I was in person, and the pandemic happened, and then it was
Mhm.
all over Zoom, and none of the groups in Anchorage were doing Zoom at that time. So I was like, oh shit, I've got to really
Yeah.
do some research. And it just so happened I stumbled on this group that's out of Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, and they're right in the Bible Belt. I myself, I'm not Christian. I don't believe in God, but they accepted me for who I was,
Right.
and they didn't
So
judge me
cool.
for it. They didn't
Yeah,
judge
you
me
made
for it.
friends across the states. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that group really helped usher me into who I am today, and bring me into that. And, and so I really, I advocate for people if they say, oh, I'm thinking about getting sober. I'm like, start out in a 12-step program. And they're like, well, I don't like the concept of AA. And I'm like, well, you, I'm not, I'm not saying like, they say I don't like the concept of NA or AA. And I'm like, that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. Try it. And if you don't like it, there's no harm,
Yeah,
no
and I
foul.
think that there's many roads to recovery.
There's like
I
29
do.
pathways to recovery.
I do believe that. I really
It's
do.
insane. hmm
Because
and
we're
I
all
know.
so different too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I know that. I know what worked for me may not work for Joe Schmo down the road, and so like when people say what helped get you sober, I say this helped me get sober, but it may not work for you. And I'm not saying that because it worked for me that it's gonna work for you. You have to find what works for you, because some people don't like being preached at. Some people
Yeah.
don't, some people like the human connection, some don't. I'm okay right now where I'm at in my life, where I have uh the amount of human connection that I have, um because I am retired. My wife works all the time. I have to be a stay-at-home dad on top of doing this, on top of providing my support. So my level of human interaction is perfect for me right now,
Yeah.
and the connection is perfect for me right now. Not saying that it's going to be perfect a year from now,
Hmm.
but I love what I do. I love my life now. Um, and you were talking about skydiving and doing some of the more extreme stuff. When I was in the army, dude, those red berets, I was a paratrooper. I used to jump out of airplanes, dude, and
Really,
like,
yeah, it's awesome.
mm, yeah, yeah. Well, I'll let you keep that. I was terrified. I'm terrified of heights, and so so for me,
Yeah.
it was the mind over matter thing. And so that door would open, and a million things would rush to my brain. Is my main going to deploy? If it doesn't, does my reserve deploy?
Right.
Do I have my life insurance set up to the right person? And that's
Oh my God.
that kind of thing really just. And luckily none of those worst case scenarios happened. I did have a really bad jump where I had a really bad concussion, and that's kind of what helped get me out of the army. But because of those opportunities, I was able to face a lot of the fears that I have. Um, there's still my fears that I have like now, but they're not as strong, and they're not life
Yeah.
consuming. They're not life consuming. I used to have this like crippling fear of death, right? Where
Oh,
I would sit there and
that
I'd
one.
obsess over it, and I'd be like, oh my
Yeah.
God. And I would live this harm reduction lifestyle where I'd be like, I'm not going to go outside because the sun is cancerous, and if dude, the sun is one of the best forms to cure depression.
Love it. I know,
Yeah,
right? I think that's
yeah,
part of the reason why I like climbing too, is I'm like outdoors, just the
yeah,
outdoors in general.
yeah,
So
yeah.
true. That's so funny too, to like have such a strong fear of death when you
Mhm.
used to be an alcoholic, you know?
Oh yeah. Oh, I definitely put my life at risk many times when I was in my
Right.
addiction, but I get
100%.
I get sober and I'm like, oh my God, this is my worst fear ever. It's dying.
You're like, I'm not gonna drive anymore.
All right, I'm not going to drive anymore. I'll strictly bike. But hold on, what if I pull a hamstring and I'm in the middle of the road on my bike? I could get hit by a car. It's crazy. It's mad.
I'm
It's madness that it's
Yeah.
madness. The things that enter into our brain, and,
Yeah.
and but so I love the where I'm at in life. And you were talking about going. You were talking about going to a hardcore show. What music are you listening to now?
Yeah, so I listen to some hardcore, like I like this band Drain. They're like a California hardcore
Hmm.
vibe. This is Hardcore Festival in Philly is like a ton of bands. I don't know all of them. A lot of them are some of like those old 80s and 90s hardcore bands. Where I am in the Northeast though, it's like a huge music scene. And then I also listen to I listen to a lot of indie music. Listen to pop punk, and then I even will like listen to like Drake, dude. Like I'm kind of like shameless now. Like I kind of because now I'm 29 and I'm getting closer to 30, so now I just like don't give a fuck what people think about me as much.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So like I just like I enjoy what I enjoy, you know. I have some guilty pleasures, but I don't feel guilty about them. Like, yeah, sometimes I listen to that.
Yeah, no, my musical taste is insane, you know, because music's
All
been a
over the
big part
place.
of my life. My music has been a big part of my life for pretty much my whole life. When I was in high school, I was in a marching band and I loved it. I had a great time.
Yeah.
I actually went on YouTube and I was looking up a bunch of like drum corps stuff. And I messaged one of my buddies I was in marching band with. I was like, dude, I miss this so much. And he was like, yeah, I do too. And it's just one of those things. It's like an adrenaline rush, like the roar of the crowd, all that stuff that,
Yeah.
but you know, when it comes to my musical taste, and I do my live thing on TikTok and I play music in the background. I got this gym playlist. I don't even go to the gym anymore. But like I had this gym playlist and some people come in there and they're like, oh, play this band. I'm like, I'm sticking to this playlist because like right now, this is what I'm comfortable with. It has like Godsmack, Deadpool, or not Deadpool, Drowning Pool. And then it even goes as far as like T-Pain. And like like T-Pain and Lil Wayne and
He's so
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Have you ever seen his like live performances? Like he can do like acoustic sets, so he has a beautiful voice.
Who, T-Pain?
Yeah, he
No,
does.
I have not.
I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
that
send it
sounds
to you.
good.
Yeah.
And then I got like I said I'm not Christian, but I got like other bands like Skillet, and I've got like Demon Hunter on there,
I used to listen
and
to
then
those bands.
Lamb of God, and it's just like all
Yeah.
immersed. And everyone's like, your music taste is very wide, and I'm like, that's not even the touch of it. I like country music. I like country music. It all depends on my mood.
I love it all.
Yeah, I just stumbled into Morgan Wallen, and I'm like, holy crap, dude, you touched a bit of my emotions I didn't know were there. Yeah. Yeah, music has been a huge part of my life for so long. And now I'm in my life in recovery. I actually got this really cool opportunity at the end of the month. And I get to go down to Nashville and I get to go talk in front of 6,000 people about my story.
Wow.
At the national it's the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. So it's a bunch of judges, lawyers, lawmakers, program coordinators all throughout the country that are coming together and they're talking about recovery. And this is the first time in 2022 that we're having a national alumni group there. And I'm a founding member of our national alumni program for the therapeutic courts or drug courts.
Wow.
Yeah, and
That's
so
crazy.
yeah, we got Alaska. We have people from New Mexico, Nevada, Texas, Georgia, and Maine already in our group, and so we're really working on the connection part of it and trying to reform a lot of the laws that were criminalizing people in recovery. So, for instance,
I'm very
I hate it.
passionate about this. Yeah, I hate this.
We have so
Don't get me started.
our state alumni, we go and we lobby in Juneau, to our lawmakers, to our senators, our governor, about reforming some of this. So much so that a lot of our older alumni are known by first name basis in Juneau. And they go down there and the senator's like, hey, how are you doing today? How is X, Y, and Z? And it's just beautiful to see that happening now and to see that happening. So for instance, like we got DUIs or felony DUIs reduced for people that are in therapeutic courts. So there used to be
Wow.
a lifetime ban on people who have felony DUIs. And so now we have not myself, but a gentleman by the name of Ron Wilson and Steve Corvin and Carlos Diaz went down to Juneau, and they spoke, and they say, hey, look, people in recovery were people too. We made mistakes, and that's not the portion of our life that we're in now. And the portion that we're in our life now is giving back to the community that we used to take from. And so senators and lawmakers passed it where if you enter into a therapeutic court, it gets reduced down to a misdemeanor, and you have the option to get your license back. You have to get a limited license first, and then you get your regular license back. But we have guys and gals that have 2 and 3 felony DUIs who have been through therapeutic courts that now have a license, and they're
That's
living a
pretty
life of
crazy.
recovery. Yeah.
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 Beautiful. The
Yeah.
only thing is weird. I always heard about drug court. It's really hard to be successful in it too, you know? Except for you.
Yes.
You're my success story.
So yes and no. It's all about surrender, right? So when we get into a program, right? So you did your 12-step program, I did my 12-step
Yeah.
program, you do other programs. It's all about surrender. If you surrender to the program and to surrender to the way that it works, and you work it, it works. So for instance, for me, when I went into veterans court, I went in with the intention of this is where I need to be in my life. I'm going to take everything that I can from this.
Goal.
Yeah. I said I'm going to take everything that I can from this program, and I'm going to incorporate it into my life. And no joke, every day I was doing something, whether it was a 12-step meeting or multiple 12-step meetings. If it was going to a relapse prevention class, more Reconnaissance therapy, whether it was going to counseling, I was always doing something to fill my time. And then when all that was done and I was with myself, I could fill myself with self-care and really immerse myself into recovery as a lifestyle. And I had support, and I had people that supported me. And sure, life got hard. Trust me, life got hard. I wasn't allowed to be around my family for 7-8 months. And there was times even after I graduated where life kind of was rough for me. But
Right.
in my life right now, I'm great. I got out of therapeutic court, and I was like, I don't know where I fit in, and I don't know who I am as a person. And because for these 9 months I've been working a program where somebody's told me what I have to do. Now I have to figure out what I need what I need to do for myself to stay sober and to stay clean, and not revert back to the way that I was, because I know who I am. I know that if something happens, I have that fallback, but now that fallback is detrimental to me. And I know that if I go back to that, I'm going to die. Like straight up, there's no more incarceration for me. I'm done. And that's not what I want. That's not what I want for my life, and what anybody wants for my life. So that's where enter into the peer support stuff comes in, and that gave me a sense of purpose. And now I live to stay sober for myself, but I live to stay sober because other people depend on me to be sober. I have to show up, and I have to be available. And if I don't show up, then I'm promoting that to other people that I'm with. If I don't show up to my groups, and I'm promoting that, and it's okay, because Sean didn't show up, so I'm not going to show up today. So I have to live the life of recovery, and really give myself that motivation to keep going. And some days are easier than others. That some days are easier than others, but some days are a lot harder than others.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So, real quick before we wrap up the show, what suggestion or advice would you give to somebody that's going through what they're going through? That's in active addiction, that's kind of like on the fence about getting into recovery, but hasn't made that step yet. What would you tell them?
Oh, my advice. I mean, I usually always tell people that like they need to reach out to somebody. Like if you connected with me on this podcast, reach out to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you like feel like Sean is someone that like you can relate to, reach out to Sean, you know, like talk to somebody who went through it. That's like, and I can tell you exactly what I did and what worked for me, you know, and then obviously to just be open-minded is like huge.
Yeah.
Open-mindedness and not be afraid to like ask for help, because like obviously neither one of us did this like completely on our own. And also like I'm giving like 3 things. And also
Go for
that sobriety's so cool.
Yeah.
I want people to know that sobriety is like cool and it's fun, and I really wouldn't want to live any other way. So hopefully that convinces somebody. Take it from us.
You said sobriety is cool, and I've had people come to me since I've been sober say, "We miss the old Sean." I'm like, "Oh, so you."
I've never had anyone say that to me.
I didn't get mad about it. I didn't get upset. I didn't get aggressive. But I was like, so you like that drunk piece of shit that would steal from you and would take your time and would make an ass of himself and all these. You miss that? You miss that? Because I don't miss that guy.
You like yourself today.
You I love who I am
today. Yeah, me
Hell
too.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, I love I within confines. I mean, I'm not egotistical, but I love who I am.
I don't think that's what people take it. It's like pretty cool. No. I know that anybody struggling with like alcoholism or substance use, there's like a self-loathing with that. So the idea that someone can say like they like themselves is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was a lot of work to get here, to love myself.
Oh yeah, but they're capable. They're able to do it.
Yes. All right. So where can we find you, Rachel?
Okay, so you can. I'm gonna like. That's actually what I'm gonna work on after this. Is make like a little Linktree link on my TikTok. So my TikTok is Manic Moss Frog, which is just funny.
I seen that. I was like, what?
Well, I know. I just thought it was funny. Manic Moss Frog, but also my Instagram is Ray Fletcher. Maybe we could like maybe I can just send you the contacts. But like honestly, you can like DM me or something. It's cool.
Yep.
I'll post a little Linktree so people can like contact me more easier.
That sounds good.
And then of course my program's called Moving Mountains Recovery. Moving Mountains Recovery. It's www.movingmountainsrecovery.com. And we're a North Jersey venture therapy program. Really cool.
Sounds sick.
You would be with me. climbing stuff, not 2,000 feet, but maybe like 50 feet.
That's a lot of feet. That's a lot of feet.
I know your height. Okay, we'll keep it at like 10 feet, and then we'll go. Hey, you know what?
I'll put my foot on a rock and we'll call it good.
All right, I'll take that. We'll just hike. We'll hike.
Why not? Yeah. You could still get the same out of it with hiking. I don't trust myself to climb up rock climb that much. I'm gonna get to a point where I look down. I'm like, I've been that far.
And then you freeze. You freeze. I've seen that. I have seen that.
Yep.
I'm pretty good at talking people through stuff, though.
Yeah. That's a conversation for another time.
For another day.
Another day. Rachel, I want to thank you so much for being on this show, and thank you for hanging out with me and with us for about an hour and 15 minutes. And everybody that's watching, thank you for hanging out with us for a little bit and listening to Rachel's story and about us talk about recovery and how life is so much different now than it used to be. So, and it does get better. We do recover. So. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Much love, y'all. Be good.